Alright guys, here we are, episode 82 of the High Performance Podcast, and you've probably noticed by the intro that, fuck, the boys are sounding sweet. Angus, what do you have to say? I feel like,
That's it, the vocals, they're sounding buttery, rich, warm, hopefully, depending on how else get you use this.
What you've done to help this setup. Like, you guys are watching on YouTube right now. So,
the vision,
what have you done?
the vision was there from the start. I knew what I wanted the podcast to look like, and look, I was hyping you up at work this morning. I was giving you credit. I was like, I do feel bad. I'm the one with the know-how, but Oscar's the one taking all the action in regards to upgrading our rig. But I feel like what more motivates you is just every time a new fitness podcast starts up in the gong. Not that we consider ourselves a fitness show. But that's when you always go out and upgrade the rig. So if you're a Wollongong listener, if you could start up a fitness-related podcast, that would be really helpful, because we just need to get a backdrop and actually our own place, and then I'll be happy.
Well, look, we're working towards that, but look...
Also, just quickly, yeah. I know we have a guest here, but Mr. AirPods on the story earlier today, showing them off. How they feel?
Look, I love the AirPods. Angus, we've got a million things we can talk about, which we are going to talk about, but let's just introduce our guest. So today... he's been on the podcast briefly before to give his thoughts on cheating in sport regarding earlier in the year, the Australian cricket scandal. Nathan Kiely, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Did I get the last name right?
No.
Is it
no.
I knew
The worst thing is, like, I've heard Gmo say that, but it just went straight over my head.
No one's ever said it to me.
So my entire life has been I just don't even question it anymore.
Also, I respect the shit out of you not correcting people when they
I just don't care anymore, man.
People correct me all the time. I'm like, what? And when they get angry, it's like, am I just not meant to say it till I get it right? You know what I mean? Like, you need a couple of run-throughs live in person. Then there's no excuses.
Yeah, you need them to hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
So it's Kiely.
Yeah.
Nathan Kiely. Okay.
Like Minogue.
Yeah, they're spelled entirely different.
Yeah, so I went to uni with a girl who had the I and the E the other way around, and hers was pronounced Kiely, but she got Kiely all the time. We were both like...
pronunciation.
Everyone's phonetic.
We're both like, your name's spelt wrong, and people are saying it wrong too.
Hey, don't worry. Another couple of good, strong years in the industry, everyone will know exactly how to say it.
Angus, before we get into it, I just want to talk about, I think, two things. Two stories that we need to catch up on. A few people reached out to me regarding last episode. You started talking about your date story.
Yeah.
And you also the episode before with Luke Tulloch.
Yeah.
Where we brought up Cialis and red wine
Yeah.
for dinner. I feel like Nathan, somewhat of an expert when it comes to training. So first off, can you tell the story of...
No. Well,
look, you don't have to mention specifics, but then we can get Nathan's opinions on how he thinks you would perform after a meal of red wine and Cialis.
I don't even know what Cialis is.
Cialis is like a dick pill of some...
It is.
We're going to need to edit a thing in so that Mum doesn't listen to this part.
Who cares?
I just don't really care.
Look, it's like Viagra.
Mum, if you're listening to this, don't bring it up with me in real life, okay? Just pretend you don't know about it.
Anyway, so I'll tell the story. And look, this may or not be true. It's true. Just for Angus's safety's sake. Angus went on a date with a woman. Thought he might be getting some action. He really wanted to perform. Forgot to eat dinner. Smashed some red wine. And then ate some Cialis, Viagra.
Ate some Cialis. Booked an Airbnb.
And then ended up watching the new Avengers film with a raging erection and got absolutely nothing.
Oh, dude, I could have knocked down a retaining wall with it. It was crazy. But
And then one of the questions we asked Luke Tulloch is, what sort of
because it's a vasodilator.
Yeah,
so you would think that you would be able to get a pretty good pump, but I don't know if
the
there's
question is, does it sort of, would it rile you up? Do you think you'd be performing at your best, or do you think it would be a distraction to suppress that testosterone erection?
This is a good question. I feel I've been thrown under the bus early doors here. You got me out of my comfort zone.
Well, we knew you'd do your prep work, so we had to throw you a curly one.
Yeah, that is a curveball.
And it doesn't even have to be a serious
I don't know,
answer.
mate. Like, so, okay, think of it this way. Like, if you're... say you're getting a bit of chest on, is it going to be something that you're trying to like hide the fact that while you're supine on the bench that you've just got this mad tower?
Nah, you're training in a venue by yourself.
Okay, all right.
Well, training in tights, like the bench situation's always awkward if you've got any sort of arch, because your moose knuckle is just pushed out there for everyone to see, so you have to be very comfy with yourself.
Yeah.
But I personally, that's why everyone.
Performance benefits.
No,
I guess
sorry.
what we're saying.
Well, it's definitely going to get in the way with your weightlifting. That's going to be an issue.
Well, no, see, because obviously we know the vertical nature of erections is fine for clean and jerk. It's only snatch where that would be an issue. Because there's a lower contact point.
We're really pulling in aggressively.
Sorry, I don't know if we're heading for that.
Well, anyway, look, I think I'd just be heaps angry and I don't think I'd be able to train.
Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
why I
side
answered.
plot to this. Everyone at work has been wondering why I've stopped training in tights, and it's because I've started benching again. I just don't want to be presenting like that.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you don't want to.
Well,
be.
it's like a new thing that, like, chicks have been dealing with camel toe for ages, but now dudes, it's like this new factor in activewear because it is socially acceptable for men just to train in tights now. It's like,
Is it though?
where do you put
That's
the hole?
the question.
So I popularised I credit myself with popularising it in the Sydney CBD. It started in about 2016. I rock up to a new commercial gym. People are like, who's this silly goose wearing tights? Obviously, because I was stronger than everyone, I became the cool guy, and now everyone else wears tights when they train.
But you can't.
In the whole CBD.
You can't be that guy who's not strong or good in his craft.
You
and
need to have
rock
a set
up
of
to
wheels.
train in tights. Yeah.
There's nothing grosser than a flat male ass in tights.
Nathan, what do you think?
No, I
You train
agree.
a lot of teams. You see a lot of athletes.
Well, most
And
of
you
my
see some
guys have
powerful
some
male
glutes on
glutes.
them, so yeah.
Exactly right. But what do you thought? I guess you don't have much exposure to general population and gym goers. So what's the feel on the average?
Well, I suppose
man in the gym?
anecdotally, pre-coaching time, it was maybe this is like pre-2016 when it became popular to wear ties, according to Angus. But there was the only bloke who came to my gym that wore tights was like 40 and it's clearly never lifted weights before in his life, and I was like, what's
What
doing?
are you
Yeah, but just like the dad shoes that are now in, that's just the trickle-down effect of fashion.
It is
Cyclical.
It is.
Yeah.
So what
Comes and goes.
what circumstances do you say, Nathan, that it's okay to wear tights when training? Obviously, sprinting, 100%. Or do you
Yeah.
not? Are you a tight?
Well, you didn't
because
sprint.
Even then,
I'm a
I
tight guy.
don't mind like short skins, but
That's me.
that's just doable. But I think it just looks neat and tidy when you've got shorts over the top of it.
I think that's the opposite. See, it's winter at the moment, so I opt for the slightly longer hanging shirt because obviously things are cold. I like
See,
to.
what's
look
worse
somewhat
than the
presentable.
cold is dehydration, in my opinion. Summer is where I more opt for the coverage.
Oh, see, I'm always pretty hydrated. I'm very on with that. So summer, it's nice and warm. I'm going no shirt, the tights. I don't mind mixing it up with the shorts, but so obviously for sprinting, you're marginal to the tight wearing as a male.
You know what?
Partial.
You just do you, man. And
What marginal is that? Not?
No, you're partial to it. You're not marginal to something. Well, marginal would be like you're a fence sitter to it, whereas partial is like you were partial to it.
Well, no, that's what I was saying. He is marginal, so he's a fence.
yeah, fair.
yeah, I've got no opinion.
Sorry, I'm running on 4 hours
and you're
sleep.
so quick to pull me out, but wrong.
Look, in fairness, it was a safe assumption to assume that you were wrong. This is like the one time where it actually ruins me a bit.
Yeah,
I
that's
want to
true.
steer this conversation back to glutes because the glute guy, Brett Contreras, he works mostly, as I can tell, with general pop and maybe more the fitness model crowd, but he does
the
do a lot of
bikini
research.
model.
And he likes posting about the value of the hip thrust in its transfer to, like, I think it's even been brought up. He's tried to relate it to tackling power, sprint
Yeah.
speed, and things like that. Is it the athletic aspect and the athletic transfer of the hip thrust exaggerated, do you think?
I mean, all exercises are just tools, right?
Yep.
And I was only having this conversation.
I see.
With
This is
someone
going to be
last
one of
night.
those no straight answers podcasts.
Well,
eh?
okay, so we were just talking about Joe Rogan earlier, the Joe Rogan
Yeah.
podcast. So
I've got to stop giving
one
him
of my
shout-outs.
one of my favorite episodes with the Joe Rogan podcast was with Dr. Andy Galpin. Have you listened to that
Yeah,
one?
it's
The
a
most
good one.
reasonable fitnessy person he's
Yeah,
had on.
and like every single Rogan got nothing from him because it was just like, well, it depends. So I think
is
there's
the
going to be quite a bit
fitness industry,
of
though.
well,
It does
and this is the
depend
thing,
on
right?
what
Like
it is.
people, the people who get a lot of attention and sort of like commercially successful are the ones who try and polarize things and come up with my way is the way to do it, my way is the best or whatever. But at the end of the day, like there's more than one way to skin a cat,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
like every exercise is really only good at making you better at that specific exercise. But they're all going to have some transfer to other things. And then the art of it is, all right, well, individual differences and how you periodize and how you program and put that stuff together, right? So on the hip thrust, for example, it's an awesome tool. I use it. in some programs, we don't use it in others. Where you fit it in your program and why you fit it in, that's the important stuff. So does it have transfer to sprinting? If you give that to someone who does no strength training, they probably will run faster.
Yes.
But you take that to a highly trained athlete, and is the effect going to be worthwhile? Well, that's where there's a lot of debate, and especially in sports science, especially sports science research. Oftentimes they've got such small sample sizes, and this is something I've got a problem with at the moment with my research, is the sample size is so small that in order to say something is indeed worthwhile, you need a huge effect to be shown because your sample size is so small. So a lot of sports science is quite murky in that it's quite difficult to say, does this work, does it not work?
Well, that was something that Greg Knuckles really drove home in our episode with him. He was even, because you know how people really romanticize all the Russian research and things like that, because I think the thinking is that they had bigger populations to deal with, but then what he was saying is just the nature of how that research was conducted. It's like,
it's pretty dodgy
huge
science
population,
too as well.
but it was just completely bastardized.
You wouldn't get that stuff published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning today. Like I'd say the methodology's probably got a few holes in it and things like that. I'm not saying that the conclusions they drew are wrong, but it's not the most robust.
Because people act like all the Russian systems are magic.
And look, we've learnt a lot based on, like, I'm at the moment, my thing is to try and get through Super Training, which is this Verkhoshansky book, and it's an absolute monster, and it's pretty slow going, but it's all based on like all this old Soviet research and things like that, and a lot of it is like the fundamentals that all strength and conditioning is based on today. But then there's other things in there, and I kind of go, well, this is a really old paper.
It's like the Old Testament of S&C.
Yeah, it's like there's these papers from like 1950 or whatever talking about just like I don't even know if you'd be able to find that study and read what it actually says and what the methodology is. Like, you're not going to find that on PubMed. Like, it's
someone's obviously converted it from Russian to English as well.
So Super Training is like sort of considered the Bible of strength and conditioning, and Verkhoshansky and a guy named Mel Sif, the South African guy.
Also, they wrote it in English.
Yes, it is in English.
Okay. I thought it was like this Russian guy.
The early editions are pretty poor translations from Russian. So I'm lucky I've got an older, more recent edition, and mine was actually, it's just credited as Mel Sif, so he's sort of, essentially it's a rip-off of the Verkhoshansky version of the book, but it's better translated and it makes sense.
So Verkhoshansky, was he the throwing coach? Was that...
That's Bunderchuk.
So he was sprint coach, or what was his main thing?
I actually don't know.
Just a bit of a generalist.
Yeah, maybe I should know that. I don't know.
No, you're not obligated to.
And this is, I guess, one of the reasons we wanted to get you on. Is that something you guys are sort of made to read because you study and you're about to complete your Bachelor of Exercise Science, correct?
Yeah, so I'm just across the road here at UTS doing
what a great facility.
I saw you. You got the gold pass the other day.
I was
Ed Jenkins runs that place, mate.
He does, and shout out to Mitch Robinson. I believe you know him.
I don't know.
Aussie Sevens guy from Gerringong. Anyway,
no, I don't.
Get up there.
Yeah.
Was he name dropping Nathan?
He said, I was like, we're getting Nathan Kiely on the podcast.
Kylie.
I know. Fuck! That's why. Maybe he knows his Nathan Kiely. from that home he's something running around.
Oh, dear.
So, Mitch, if you're listening, well, he knows your alter ego.
Oh, okay. Maybe I do know Mitch. I'm not sure. So I saw you in there. Getting your dunk on.
Oh, I'm trying to. Fuck.
Somewhat of a dunk.
Good facilities, man.
Oh man, amazing facility.
What's the crowd like in your degree? Like a lot of people like you who sort of, you know.
I'd actually say I'm.
It's okay to say you're an outlier.
I would say I'm an outlier. Yeah. So when I didn't start my undergraduate degree till I was like 22. So I finished school, worked other jobs, did different things, travelled, all sorts of different stuff. And then I kind of, like, when you finish school, I didn't really think strength and conditioning was a thing. Like, I'd never heard of it. I didn't understand that it was a thing you could do for a living. Not that you really get paid for it.
You're actually right.
We'll get there.
Because, look, in the end, we want to speak today about the pros and cons of doing an exercise science degree, because I think a lot of people go into the degree thinking they're going to work with elite sporting teams.
Yeah, so, all right, well, to give you like the whole context then, so I started my degree at 22, and when I started my degree, I knew what I wanted at the end of it. Whereas I think the vast majority, like 99.9% of students go into it because they enjoyed PE at high school, they like sport, they think it might be interesting, and
they think it's smutty to become a personal trainer.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's the same with me, like failed athlete but wants to stay involved in sport, right?
Of course.
That's the reason they get into it. And like they're not necessarily the wrong reasons, but they're quite naive reasons, I think. So I went into it knowing this is going to be a slog, and I know that it's going to be a really long journey to get to a position where like it's going to be financially viable. And I'm still a student now. I've only been really coaching for like 2 or 3 years. Like I feel like I'm just coming out of like toddler stage at the moment. There's still a lot to learn and a lot longer journey to go, but I sort of understood that going in, and I think like knowing that full picture gives you, like, just prepares you a lot better.
Well, it's going to motivate you to go through all the shitty aspects.
Yeah,
because in any degree, like, you've got the idea of, like, what you need from it, but there's still all the other requisites of the degree that you have to do. So, and I think that would be one of the big contributing factors that'll make you put yourself through that stuff. What was the initial vision? What is the end goal?
So, like, my sport growing up was cricket, and I love cricket. That's what my research is in at the moment. So, for those who don't know, like, I'm doing an additional year of my bachelor degree, which is an honours year. So, where you become a researcher, essentially. You create a research project and conduct that project, and then the goal is to end up with a published research paper at the end. So, cricket was always my first passion as sport. That's why I got into training myself. Like, I wanted to be a better cricketer. So my goal was I wanted to work in cricket. And I always had the ambition of I'd love to be a head of performance for Cricket New South Wales or Cricket Australia and be involved in that sport. So with that in mind, I knew that my education was like a means to an end rather than I'm just sort of going through the motions and we'll figure it out later, which I think everyone else does. Like, there's probably maybe 1 or 2 people I went to uni with that had a vision like that, and that was out of a cohort of like 200.
And the reality is, like, a lot of them, I guess, realise that midway through, and then they go, fuck, what can I do? PE teacher, physio, go on to do physio, personal training, like glorified personal training, or work in insurance. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, I think the insurance is a big side of things. It's a lot bigger side, I guess, of the economy than being a well-paid strength and conditioning coach or researcher.
Insurance for what?
So they do, like...
Is it like risk assessment?
Risk assessment, getting people back to work, like dealing with the scum of society that wanted, like...
Is that like Jim Carrey and Yes Man?
No. It's like getting people back to work, and like people are like, oh, my back still hurts.
Oh, like an occupational therapist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Actually, one of my colleagues at the Roosters recently injured himself at work. Actually, I'll tell you that story in a minute. That's very funny.
Okay. Is that something we can speak about?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a bit...
I'm throwing him under the bus, but it's pretty funny.
Like, you have really sought out mentors and I guess worked your way up the ladder, and you're doing a lot. So obviously you work with Roger Fabry at the Speed and Agility Academy. You're doing a lot of speed stuff there, which is extremely important to on the field sports, which is everything you do. Cricket, you work with a lot of rugby league players, and then you work at Newington College, a private school here in Sydney. Is that something a lot of the other guys are doing as well, or do they just think, oh, finish the degree and then I'll be like off to the races, everyone's going to be after me?
I think I was probably ahead of the curve again with my degree. And this is like, I consider myself really lucky that I found the right resources that told me to do this sort of stuff early. And because I knew what the end was, like, I didn't hesitate to do it. So a lot of other people, like, generally, I'm pretty sure it was like a 3rd year subject where it was like, all right, you go do an internship. But that was like, for that subject, it was like the 3rd internship that I'd done. Like, I'd already been out there, so... you guys know Graham Morris quite well.
Was that the one that you did for the...
No, that was... I did that before.
That was the dodgy one.
High Performance alumni. Shout out to Graham.
Yeah.
You'll be duking it out for Guest of the Year with him, because this is already your 2nd appearance in 2018. Which
I would say...
Wow, part-time.
So Gmo, you owe us a calling, mate.
Look, I guess it depends how much of the listeners were affected by Nathan's opinions on the cheating scandal. Go back to episode... Oh, what was it? It was like 50-something.
And then also what he has to say about Gmo at the end of this episode might turn you off him as well.
Yeah. Where were we at?
We're just talking about the internships and stuff like that. So you did a subject. How many people? So is that a compulsory subject?
Yeah, so you have to do like I don't know about other universities, but in my degree, everyone did like an internship subject in third year, like last year of uni.
But that's only like 13 weeks.
Yeah, and look, and half the time it's like random stuff. Like I don't know, people doing all sorts of different things. Whereas I was like, all right, I'm gonna
Like polishing the Smith machine or.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like
the gym. What about you? Got to tell Nathan your experience with the intern back at Wollongong Fitness First. I can remember it.
Was he from uni?
Yeah, so this guy.
Oh fuck! I hope he doesn't get a job ever.
Well, so this Angus is.
Well, that's what I worry about, mate.
This is years ago. So Angus is benching dumbbells, and this intern's sitting there twiddling his thumbs.
In tights or
No, this was pre-tights.
pre-tights.
This was actually went back when I used to pretend to squat, and I didn't actually squat. I just told everyone I squatted.
Yeah, so
but basically,
I feel like I tell a story better.
Oh, you go for it then.
So Angus is. I might be exaggerated, but I don't think it is. So Angus is benching in dumbbells. I remember Angus. I watched this happen, and this intern goes, like just a kid, sort of same age as Angus at the time. You were maybe 19, 20. Angus is doing dumbbell press, and Angus goes up to this guy. Goes, "Oh, can I get a spot? You were doing 40s, whatever you were doing." The guy goes, "Yeah, sure."
50s, bro.
50. So Angus is sitting there and he goes, "Do you mind giving me a help up on the first rep?" The guy's standing to the side of the bench and he goes, "Done." So Angus rolls back, the guy's still standing to the side of the bench, and he sort of just gets the rep up anyway without the guy's help. Goes, he's already told the guy, "I'm going for 5 reps.
Thanks, bro.
Angus gets to the 4th, really starts to struggle. The guy's still standing to his side and says, "Mate, do you mind spotting me now?" The guy goes, "Done." Picks up the dumbbell out of Angus's left hand, puts it on the ground. Angus goes flying off the other side of the bench with the other dumbbell. The guy goes, "All good?" And Angus goes, "Yeah, mate, thanks."
No,
And he might-
negative actually. No.
The only detail you got wrong is I didn't actually say, "Can you spot me?" He just did that intuitively. So I told him I was going for 5 reps. On the 4th rep, I had a tiny bit of a grind. At the top of the rep, he grabbed one of the dumbbells, took it out of my hand, and like I'm benching like over 50% of my body weight in each hand.
Yeah,
so it was
50s,
just
bro.
like fucking ridiculous. I wanted to kill him.
He didn't even know quick maths to figure out the physics of that.
It's just that's the kind of guy that's just useless though. Like you can't help someone who's that stupid.
There are battlers in this one. So,
Yeah.
oh no,
So
don't get me started.
That's what a podcast is for, because like I feel bad for
Do you
those
get
guys
pissed
that
off
work
when
in
you're
the
sitting
gym.
in class at the standard? Do you want to just like turn around and scream at the class and be like, "Are you
Man,
into this?" Like,
yeah, I do worry, man. Like there's just some stupid people out there.
Well, and there might
but Oscar's dumb, and like because he cares about his job, he does alright.
No, but that's what I'm saying. A lot of these people, their parents have probably been like, "You got to go to uni."
Well, you don't need to
what's
be
fun?
smart to do
Exercise
anything, man.
science.
You've just got to
Yeah,
be.
your big mistake
You've just got to be
is
on.
thinking that smart people go to uni. When you get to uni, you realise it's like, oh no, there's
Like I
idiots
didn't do
everywhere.
well at school, man. Like
It's what you're passionate about. It's
yeah,
exactly
it's
what-
like you're just all in,
But
and
the
that's
maths
the
that
game
you have
changer.
to handle to complete your masters, like that's pretty intense level statistics, right? That you've obviously.
YouTube, mate. We were talking about this before as well. Yeah, you can learn anything on YouTube.
But that's it because you give a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
You will find the means to do it.
Exactly, man.
What
Like,
I've learned, even like we were discussing before we started recording about like learning stuff off YouTube and me for the podcast, like this equipment was all foreign
The
to me
setup.
yesterday, but I learned it because I was so, obviously I need it, but I really want this to sound good and do well. And I
You're
just
invested,
took
man, yeah.
everything in so much easier than if we were, I guess, to go over to even sport, I'm into sport, but go over to Cricket New South Wales and you start to explain like how to bowl. I'm just maybe I'm not as interested.
Yeah.
That's probably something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, but that's the other aspect of that. Having a passionate teacher can also sort of ignite your passion in
point.
something.
Yeah, that would help
What
too.
kind of lectures and stuff are you dealing with? Do they really sell it? Because that was something
Oh,
that
man,
annoyed me
this-
about my education. Like, some of the
well,
lecturers...
yeah, like I think it was more. Again, this comes back to the fact that I was heavily invested. Like I'd say that I'd have like peers who just sort of were pretty laissez-faire about it, and they didn't really understand like the access to the people that we've got. Like we've got some incredible like staff at UTS who are not only like experts in their field, but are also like sensational teachers. Like
Oh, that's awesome.
and it just comes back to like being bought in. Like if you buy in, and I think it's the case with like any teacher, man. Like if the student is gonna come and want everything, like most teachers are gonna be willing to give you everything, right? It's like, and the only reason I sort of stumble on this, I'm like taking my time, is because like I'm just always constantly thinking back to like personal examples where I'm in the other shoe. Like having issues with like athletes and stuff at the moment where it's like they just don't buy in, and it's like you can lead a horse to water but you can't make them drink from it. And the same thing in your own education, like if you don't want to drink from the well, then you're not going to get anything from your teachers. You're not going to get anything from your mentors. You're not going to get anything from anyone, right? Like, but if you're the first one in, last one out, you got your notepad and you got all your questions, and I think generally, like, we don't give people enough credit. Like, most teachers are going to give you the extra time.
Yeah, they just want to see some passion, I guess, reciprocated by the student.
Yeah.
So these athletes that you have a bit of trouble getting buy-in, are you dealing with these people face-to-face all the time, or is it sort of face-to-face once a week, then you give them programming, and then it's a bit lackluster the way it's performed sometimes?
No, so it's... And look, the 99% again of the athletes that I work with are sensational. Like, they're a really good bunch of kids. So
See, boys, he loves you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're lucky as
boys.
well. You're working with kids that are maybe verging on the edge of a professional contract and they see it as a career, and even I've noticed this with personal training kids from private schools. They have a lot more willingness to learn as opposed to, I guess, the public system.
Oh, mate, and that can go the other way as well. Like, everyone gives like private schools shit because of like, they're in their high horses or whatever, and like everything comes easy to them because it's handed to them on a silver platter. Like, that's the...
But also
That's
the
stereotype.
study loads they get. Like, when I talk to some of my clients what their kids are going through at those real up there schools, like 2 hours homework every single night. Like, I did like no homework all through high school.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was the
Stuff
same. Like,
that.
I did nothing, and I was like, I don't think, like, both have their positive and negatives. Like, on the public school private school debate.
Yeah.
Like,
Wait, were you public school?
I went to a Catholic school.
Yes, okay, so you're the same as us.
So
See,
it's
as a
like
Catholic
it's
school
not like
kid-
a private school. It's not like a public school.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't privileged,
Yeah.
but it also, like, I grew up in a country town and the public schools were shit.
Wait, where did you
Wait.
grow up?
I grew up in Port Macquarie on the
Oh,
coast.
fuck, so you were
So you love a
all
bit of
out
a
there.
bodyboard?
Oh, it's pretty big up there. I never
Yeah.
got into the boogie, man. Like,
See, that's Angus and I. Our bread and butter was bodyboarding back in the
well,
day.
it's meant to be the mecca, man. Port Macquarie.
Yeah, Port
like,
Macquarie was. Port Macquarie then, like...
Which I don't know why, because
where?
where are the big gnarly breaks around there? Usually the boogers, they need a bit of a shallow reef, but it's all beaches up there.
The break wall. The break wall at Port
Because then you
Macquarie.
get that side, that peak, that big wedge, like we used to get at Bommy Right.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Did someone broke their neck out there?
Yeah.
Only not long ago. That's crazy.
I think there's been
Bommy
a couple of big
and,
injuries out there.
Bo Wheeler broke
God, I
his
haven't
leg
heard
there.
anyone talk about bomby rights in so long.
Bodyboarding, fuck, dead sport. If you see
Yeah.
anyone over 40, over 20 bodyboarding, they're not professional.
That was so
Deep-
weird
deep
how
friend, though.
bomby rights just became a thing all of a sudden though, because we served the bomby for years and we knew it was strictly a left. And then one of those big swells came through and I was like, fuck me, there's been a right there all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, should we... No,
We're going to steer this back to
yeah,
things
we
that people...
have to. We have to.
No more fucking
But I
inside jokes.
got a hot tip for any kids listening that bodyboard. And like I said, unless you're turning pro, change to surfing.
Yeah, start earlier.
Like, if you how to know someone is very, very strange, they're over the age of 25 and they're still bodyboard.
And like, because
It's an unspoken thing in the surfing community.
I've never seen anyone start surfing over the age of 18 and get anywhere with it.
Yeah, we
Good.
Because there's just a certain age where you don't want to be
hard.
seen eating shit at something that much, especially a sport that's almost exclusively about being cool.
Unless I think that is...
well, it's like a culture, the sport,
It
right?
is.
So it's like,
And I think that's true, Angus, unless you are an elite level swimmer, gets to the age of 20, then you want to take up surfing, because then you've got a huge motor to A, get on waves earlier, and then be exposed to more practice because you can catch more waves because you can out paddle people. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Right, let's get back to the
what's
relevant
it?
topic.
Less-
When I was talking to Kier, rugby strength
Yes.
coach,
Yeah.
one of his, I guess, issues with the nature of the way S&C coaches are trained at universities is that the universities are producing S&C researchers rather than S&C coaches.
yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Is it a problem? And then how can we maybe change the degree, or do we need to come up with a new degree that can adequately prepare coaches, or is it just on them to come up with those skills on their own?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. Like, it isn't practical enough in that, like, you can finish a sports science degree and not know how to train. Like, we see it all the time. Like, we'll have interns come in. Well, I've seen it. Like, not all our interns, some of them are good, but I've seen interns come in and I've watched them train and I'm like, you actually don't know how to lift.
That's a tough conversation because do they think that they do or?
I don't know, mate. Like,
Okay,
mate,
'cause I guess that's hard to pull on the side as well.
It's more common than not as well.
I don't know,
'Cause
man.
From what I've seen, because I guess we get the interns that are on the lower end of the spectrum. Maybe this is the harsh thing
You
to
get the
say
pay stealers.
in a gym environment because all the
like I've heard of like other like I think I was listening to a podcast once where a coach was saying like unless their students were like competing in like high level sport, he made them be part of the college's weightlifting team. And I thought that's
cool. Fair.
Like,
That's
awesome.
Fair.
Like that's such a
Yeah.
like you're going to learn a lot in that
quick
environment
as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, it's going to give you a lot of empathy for the being coached.
Oh
as
man,
well.
being like training yourself is like a huge thing for a coach. So, probably like when we first connected, just like over social media a couple of years ago, was I had started to spend a lot of time trying to get decent at weightlifting. Like I'm not good.
Was
like
the
but
intention of that to put more tools in the tool belt, or was it just a
No,
passion?
it was literally my whole goal was I want to be able to, and I was working in a high school at the stage. My goal was I want to be able to walk up to any bar cold and hit a clean or a snatch, no matter what weight the athlete is using. And that was literally the goal. It was like whatever they've got on the bar, I should be able to hit a rep to demonstrate something.
Just hit it cold in front
Yeah,
of
100%. No, that was my goal. That was my goal. And for a year, I literally just trained weightlifting with that goal in mind. And then this year, it was the same with like sprinting. Like I'm not a sprinter by any means, but it was like, all right, I need to invest some time in this to actually live it and feel it and understand it. And within like a month, it had already completely changed my program because I was like, fuck, my warm up is really long. Like I'm gassed by the end of this.
Warm up is crazy though.
I am gassed by the end of it. I was like, I haven't got. I'm fucked for my first rep. So I was like, all right, the warm up needs to be shorter, sharper. Still need to do all the right stuff.
Yeah, because there's so many qualities you need to get going.
Yeah, like we need to tick the boxes.
Yeah, sprinting warm up is more or less. I think I break it down as I do my mobility warm up, then you do your drills and warm up because, like you said, it is taxing, and for some people alone, drills and run throughs is enough.
Well, and the other thing is, mate, like all the speed work that I do, well, the big component of it is with teams, and we're under the pump for time. And it's like, all right, so at the end of the day, you get quicker from sprinting. You don't get quicker from doing an A skip.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, how do I divvy up my time here? If there's something, if I know the warm up is fucking guys, why don't we just pull back on it a little bit, tick those boxes, don't rush it, but do it in an efficient way, and then we can maximize our time actually getting reps under our belt where we're getting exposure to top speed because that's where you develop it. And that comes from training, man, from living it.
Yeah. Is it something... Fuck, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, is that the structure of that session like you were talking about just then? Are they giving you any idea of that at university? Or... Because, like you said, you learnt all that from training yourself, training under your mentors, and I guess internships that you've sought out on your own terms.
Yeah.
What is... I guess there's so much that will make up the course. Like, what are some main things that you've really taken away from university? Because so far it's been heaps what you've learned on your own, you've learnt from mentors, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, not to put you on the spot, what are the biggest things you've learnt from university?
Well, yeah, so like back to the criticisms of the uni degrees, right? Like the one big downfall is that, beg your pardon, like most of the people who are teachers are academics. They're not like, we might have had a couple of like PhD students who are S&C coaches take a couple of tutes.
Yeah.
But all the people who are writing all the content, they're academics. So they haven't got that skill set in terms of, this is actually how it is done in practice. And at the end of the day, like, the methods are many. So them not necessarily having that isn't the end of the world because the principles are key and that's what they teach you. But like I never got taught how to coach someone in A-skip in uni.
Well, but it's also tough because I guess you got to think of the nature of how they find the lecturers and find all the teachers and things like that. Like no one's going from doing S&C for LeBron and then be like, you know what, I really want to get back to my roots and go back into a uni and educate people. Like that requires like a
There's few and
special
far
kind
between,
of character.
mate, yeah. like we have people who have done a lot of applied sports science and people who consult with AFL clubs and NRL teams, and we probably have more of the teachers and academics at our uni have probably got more experience in what would be like sports science, so monitoring, GPS, nutrition and things like that. But in the weights room, on the field, is probably where they're lacking a little bit. And I don't want to be overly critical because they do teach you a lot of really fundamental and important things that like you don't get in a PT course. So you do need to learn that stuff.
Well, I suppose the anatomy would be crazy.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on that.
Rehab, I guess, that sort of
Because that's
thing,
something that the Cert 3 and 4 does not touch on nearly enough. Like anatomy or physical, it doesn't really touch on
Doesn't
everything
touch
enough
on.
now that I think about it. Just kind of air swings over those.
Yeah, like there's positives and there's negatives to like a sports science degree, and it gives you that fundamental like basis of understanding, and then you've got to be the go-getter who wants to go out there and find out what
what is applicable.
The practice. The practice is on you, and like at the end of the day, it just comes back to what we were talking about before. Like unless you are going to buy in and actually want to go and learn by putting yourself out there, it's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. Like we don't get a drill book at uni.
I suppose it's like anything, even relating it to personal training. Like you know, that's a bad example because the PT course we've discussed before, it's pretty shit. Like I'd like to think specifically for strength and conditioning, the Bachelor of Exercise Science is way better practically to that job than what Cert 3 and 4 in fitness is to actual personal training.
Having said that though, I think the solution to the two of them will be somewhat similar where like, because as much as I criticise the Cert 3 and 4, if someone asked me to write the course, I'd be like, fuck.
You'd
like,
probably
where
come
do I
with something
start?
pretty similar.
I think what the thing is, let's have something similar to what it is now, but have an internship as a part of it, but a longer one. Like 6 months isn't long enough, but 6 months would be a great starting point, I think. And I think the same for the tertiary education, the more formal education, the S&C course. It's like actually force them to go through an internship every single year.
But
like,
see, Angus, how do you control the distribution of interns to mentors in the because we know for a fact the people that
but unis can help facilitate that.
No, but I'm talking about the personal training side of things. And
what if your mentor is stupid?
Exactly, and you know
it's
the
just
sort
a
of
better.
That's like if your parents are shit drivers.
Yes.
And they teach you to drive.
Exactly. But the thing is, the sort of people in the PT industry
trying to be solution focused here.
mentees are usually people that. Like we know,
yeah, the people that are keen to mentor people are usually the worst.
Because the best trainers are making heaps of money. They're super busy, and they're going to have to take a pay cut to help someone out. So that's where that comes into it, and it's maybe the same in strength and conditioning.
I think in S&C you can probably always use more hands on deck, especially if you're coaching a team. Right?
And like everyone's under resourced.
That's
like,
a good point.
It's
the
last thing. It's the last thing to get funding is like physical preparation, which is mind-boggling to me. Like,
well, especially when you got so much money sitting on the sidelines when you have injuries.
So this would be like my argument. Like, you think about if I'm in charge of writing the program for your $1 million athlete, is it worthwhile like me having like a shit wage, or do you want me to be someone who can fully invest everything into my time to make sure I do a good job at this? Because if I fuck up, like such and such is on the sideline, and that's going to cost you big time. Like for the extra 30 grand a year to pay your S&C properly, as opposed to the potential loss of time on field for $1 million athlete.
Yeah, when you look at the
numbers don't add up.
But I think it's something and you're obviously at the early stages of your career, and I think you're moving into an exciting time because I think people are starting to realise this, even with things like podcasts, the general population and sporting fan is starting to realise the importance, even in their own training, and they go, if I can benefit from a personal trainer, why shouldn't, and every athlete on our team have a specific strength coach? Can you see it maybe 10 years down the track, funding increases, everything increases, there's sort of being a strength and conditioning coach for backs and a strength and conditioning coach for forwards in rugby league.
Yeah, the budget's increasing.
Yeah.
I actually don't know, mate, like exactly what the financial side of it is like that. Like people in the ivory towers make those decisions. That's beyond my pay grade.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you. I don't think it would necessarily go like that way, where you'd have like a coach for positions. I just think at the end of the day, there's no substitute for just having more coaches on the floor.
Yeah.
Because like one coach, like at the moment, I've had cases where it's been one coach and like 30 athletes, and that's not coaching, that's like facilitation. Like you're just standing there, you've written the program on the whiteboard, and you literally just like risk aversion, you're just trying to make sure people don't hurt themselves. That's not coaching.
Yeah, on the continuum of like how you can perform an exercise, that's not close enough to the kind of execution where you can really get those good adaptions that you're looking for, and especially when you're doing those exercises where you are at the point where you need the extra 1%.
Yeah,
that must be tough for you to deal with.
Like, and especially with like, especially the speed stuff, man. Like when I'm running some speed stuff and it's just me and I've got 30 or 40 athletes, like someone's doing a drill and they're doing that drill at the same time as 3 other people, and then 5 meters behind them is another 4 people doing the same drill, and then 5 meters behind them, like I get like a second to glance and see everything that's happening in that drill.
You've also got to communicate the feedback.
And I've got to try and make this, and it's probably a downfall on me, but sometimes it just gets resorted to good drill, shit drill, and I can't tell you why, because I haven't got time, mate. Like I'm just under the pump. Yeah, like it's and. Look, for some athletes, just say be better. It actually works sometimes. You wouldn't believe it.
Just for them to snap into gear.
Same cues, more intent.
But then it's so important to actually be able to give people good feedback too. Yeah. And it's such a battle when the coach to player ratios are so poor. So there's no substitute for having like an extra set of eyes, an extra set of hands. Like if I could have a second or a third coach with me, and sometimes we do. Like sometimes we'll have our rehab coaches or an intern who's there as well. And in those environments, like it's a game changer, man, because you can actually give people good feedback and people can get better out of it rather than going through the motions.
Well, then the trickle-down effect of that is, I guess, more buy-in, and then they're all just performing better from the get-go as well.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the James Smith model?
I like a lot of what he says. Yeah.
Wait, are we talking
I haven't read
about not PT James Smith, because I feel like he's got a huge following as well at the moment.
No, James Smith he doesn't do S&C just anymore. He's a consultant.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
So it's not the loose unit that I used to work with, whose Instagram blew up. Now he's off with the PT Academy. There's also the sports James Smith. That's the guy we're referencing. And so as I understand it, he wrote a book that got a lot of S&C guys.
I haven't actually read the book.
I just heard Gmo talk about it. I haven't read it either. I often pretend.
I listen to a lot of podcasts that he's on. So he's very very frequently on a podcast.
Oh, is this the guy that says S&C coaches should oversee the team and then the coach?
And then the tactics coach. Head coach will be changed to
So
tactics.
for people who are interested, there's a podcast called All Things Strength and Wellness. And on that podcast, James Smith is like a monthly guest on there. So he talks about like really interesting. He talks for like 3 hours straight, like if you can handle it. Jeez. And he like doesn't dumb anything down, so it can be quite difficult to listen to. I'll pass
on that one unless I've looked up.
But if people are interested, they should check it out. But yeah, like he says some very interesting things. Like some of the stuff he says, I kind of think it already does exist, like in really good setups. That some of this, like,
because it's tough because he's not actually in the trenches anymore. So I guess he's sort of like removed himself a little bit.
His consulting stuff is sort of pretty in the trenches, from what I understand. Like he's involved in a lot of like high level NFL teams and NBA teams and things like that probably are paying him quite big money to get his thoughts on things. So like I think he has got his hands on programs and knows what's going on. But like I tend not to just try and like jump on anyone's bandwagon 100% as well. Like
you can't let yourself get guru'd, hey?
Well, so you know we were talking about Brett Contreras earlier?
Yes.
Have you ever read his, like, can I pull something off?
Yeah, go for it.
So, it's just like the topic of the day lately.
Don't bring it up.
It's like this old...
Rest assured, I haven't read anything.
old article, man, this old article from years ago that he wrote about, you know that functional patterns guy?
Is that the FMS guy?
No, it's not FMS. Yeah, that guy. The anatomy trains. Man, he wrote this article. It's so good. It's how to become a functional movement guru in 40 easy steps. So it's just like this list.
So it's my kind of book. It's real short.
It's just an article.
It's bullet points. It's exactly your kind of book.
So the first point is attend a functional anatomy course and memorize the names of all the muscles. So it's just like
all the muscles.
Yeah. So
Jeez.
the next one is
That's a big job.
read the book Anatomy Trains and memorize the names of Thomas Meyer's list of arbitrary fascial patterns that exist through the body.
How many are there?
Oh, fuck,
Is there
I know, man. I'm not reading that book.
Yeah,
but
wow.
It's a good read, man, because it's all about like the guru, like having your own language and being able to like talk over the top of people so that they're sort of like mesmerized by like the language you're using. I think he's got like a couple of articles that he's written. Like he never specifically names the guru that he's talking about, but it's like pretty obvious.
Can I
he's
name
talking
three
about-
right now? Three of my favourites, and because exactly what you described is what they do. Just the way they
I know when
manipulate
you're gonna say it
language.
straight off the bat.
Let's hear it.
You get there first.
KS?
No, yeah, actually, yeah, Kelly Starrett.
No, no, fuck. I was thinking of another one.
KS. Anyway,
You
it's
spoke
Kelly
about him on
Starrett,
that Healy podcast.
Charles Poliquin, and Louis Simmons.
Oh,
Louis
okay.
Simmons, I think, is actually like quite a good coach. I think he has maybe helped sports performance a little bit. He's probably a bit too obsessed with the belt squat, if there is such a thing. But like, if you ask him a question, his answer, he'll just spit words at you, just spray word salad.
Yeah. Well, look, and
And
don't
then like Kelly Starrett with like smashing anterior compartment, flossing it.
yeah, like if you make up your own language, you automatically sound
capture people a bit more.
And it's something that like we can all be guilty of. Like we've all got our own opinions and everything, and then like to try and sell it, you're gonna have your own spin on it and things like that. And I do it myself, man. Like I've got my own training system in terms of like, all right, this is my technical model that I use for whatever. And it's like you've got to be careful. Like where do you draw the line? Like am I being sensible about this or am I being silly about it? And like yeah, you can shit all over functional patterns or whatever. But he probably does know some stuff as well. Like you can take stuff.
Something
from those
got him to
people.
the dance.
Yeah, like you can learn something from everyone, but you've also got to be a skeptic first. And I think so back to sports science degrees, right? The one thing that I think they are good at is developing a bullshit detector. And my honours project, like writing a literature review, is like that's the ultimate. Now I've got a decent bullshit detector because. Like, and I'm not an expert at it yet, but I can see how it's working in that direction. And I think so many people don't have bullshit detectors, man. Like, there are so many people who'll read something on the internet or see a video on Instagram and they just buy into things.
They don't know
straight
like
away.
the hierarchy of credible information.
Oh man, and it just comes
That
back
could
to
be a good CC course for personal trainers.
Yeah, it's like what source trumps what source.
yeah,
Because that's
that
so
would be
many
good,
people
man.
like, especially in the evidence-based aspect of PT right now, and this is probably like less of a thing in S&C. Every PT knows to ask, or is there a study on that? But it's crazy how many guys are saying
know how to
that.
take
They're
it.
definitely not reading the research, but whatever, they're aware of studies.
Well, and
but they
even
don't know
then,
about
man.
like meta-analysis.
Well, this is the thing.
things beyond that.
A study doesn't necessarily mean that that's right either. Like, I was talking to someone the other day, they were saying that, like, someone had told them that the single leg glute bridge is the best hamstring exercise for reducing hamstring tears in soccer players.
Which if you've ever
And I
done
was like,
one...
maybe there is a study, but that doesn't prove anything. Like, it's one study that, like, you don't know, man. Like,
And then let's just say that was the case though, and every study showed it. That means you got to do it every week. Your athlete's going to get so bored of it, then it's going to become not effective. Like,
Yeah.
even if it is the case, just such an outlandish
like, man,
statement.
there's...
And also, why was anyone researching that? Like, because if you just think about it,
Was
and
it
like use some
record-traced?
common sense, you wouldn't even. I wouldn't even waste the time doing that study.
Man, that was probably someone's PhD project, you know?
Oh no,
Probably
true. No,
invested
see,
3
that's,
years
I'm
of their
thinking
life in
someone's
that.
job. That's separate.
Hold on,
yeah.
Actually, I want to speak about your PhD.
Because is
Well, I'm
that
not
where we
there
get a
yet.
lot of the...
What are you doing with
Honours.
the fast bowlers though?
That's an honours project.
Honours
It's a
project.
research project,
So
so...
is majority of the research that we all read, is majority of that just students putting it out there, or is it...
Oh, no, like, your supervisors have their handprints all over it. And my supervisors are both PhDs and experts in their field.
Well, so you might just get a tap on the shoulder and your supervisor will be like, look, mate, I'll take it from here. You've really tapped into some gold.
No, it's the opposite. They go, I've got a really good idea for a paper. Now you go do all the hard work.
Oh.
Ah,
Yeah.
And then do they take the name?
Yeah,
Right,
I'm hoping my name goes in front of theirs, but
Yeah.
like it adds to their list.
So what are you doing? Because this is quite an interesting topic for our listeners. Just explain the
whole gist of
Does a
it.
simulate Blue Bridge make you bowl
what
faster?
yours is? Because you're doing something with the fast bowling,
All right.
yeah?
Okay. So my research project is based around ball release speed in cricket fast bowling, and my study uses our subject pool are a bunch of. We've got some Sydney grade cricket players who play first grade, which is pretty high level of cricket. We've got some pathways players from Cricket New South Wales, which is the under 17s and under 19s program, and then we've also got half a dozen or so of the elite New South Wales cricketers, so from the Sheffield Shield squad. In that cohort, we're looking at their physical testing, so like their strength and power and fitness measures that they do already, and we're comparing that to their ball release speed, and then also having a look at some of the technique variables in their bowling action. So in a lot of like the previous research, we know that there are some technique variables that are associated with higher ball speeds. So if we can find out maybe whether or not your strength and power numbers have a relationship to good technique variables, that could be quite useful. We could also find out that their strength testing numbers or whatever actually have no relationship to ball release speed at all, which is probably what I would hypothesize at the moment, because it's a very technical skill. And that would be useful too, because the tests that Cricket New South Wales use are dictated to them by Cricket Australia. They've got this testing protocol that they use, and they're like, you have to use these tests to do your physical testing. And the Cricket New South Wales guys are like, we don't really know why we're doing this testing. Maybe it's useful, maybe it's not. Let's find out. Because knowing what isn't useful is just as important as knowing what is.
That's a good point. But that's one of the things that annoys me about all the research that comes out when it is regarding an exercise's impact on something that is highly skill-based. It's like, I think too many people use that research to be like, look, this improves this. And it's like, people just ignore skill.
Yeah. Oh, man, everything's skill-based. Everything.
Fuck.
Especially all the stuff that you're dealing with.
Like, people, like, you know yourself, like, in a high-output sport, like something where it's just like max force. It's not just max force. There's the technical element to it as well. Like,
where are you putting the force?
Not even just weightlifting. Like in a squat, like there's a technique to squatting.
People don't realize like how technical it is as well. Like if you've been squatting for 2 years, you're not a good squatter. You know what I mean? Like there's like technically like so much more that people can squeeze out of it.
Yeah, like it's not the most technical skill in the world.
That's right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
You need some technique.
Like the bell curve gets steep pretty quick when learning how to squat, but it does still.
Well, man, that's the learning curve for everything, right? Like you learn a lot quickly, but then those marginal gains at the top, like it's a skill. You need to get reps on your belt, and like you look at a lot of elite powerlifters and weightlifters and that, like they've got some reps under their belt. Like they're not just big and strong.
Yeah.
Well, that's like even for myself, like I would trade in all my jumping ability for basketball skill, because I believe it's a lot easier. Having done it now for about 7 months, to build a vertical than it is for me to learn, because I've never played basketball, to dribble in the coordination to dunk, and then even feeling out the ring. Like the first time I dunked on the 9-9, it was like, oh fuck, it's a completely different feeling of getting the ball. Like it's like you're trying to put it in the hole. Whereas I don't know what
were you trying to do
expect.
before?
I don't know. I was like, oh fucking get up there and then I'll figure it out. But
just
don't have that much time. But then on the other hand, I guess
He's just thinking Monster Jam, baby. He's like,
I got to rain down some perspex on these fools.
Because in the end, the only people that can have no basketball skill and be able to dunk it are guys that have elite high jumpers.
7'5".
Yeah, or 7'5", or they're like they have an over 2 meter high jump. Then it's going to be easy, of course. But going back to what you said, the skill is just crazy.
And people like. So the first time you guys spoke with Graham, and like I think you guys were at first, he's like, oh, he's made a joke, and he was like, no, I'm serious. So you guys asked
the hamstring.
No, you guys asked this question. You're like, all right, so
this is gonna be embarrassing.
No, it was good. It was really good. I was like, it's such a good and his answer was perfect. He's like, all right, so you guys, I'm pretty sure it was something along the lines of, all right, so a new rugby athlete comes to you and they're like, I want to improve as a footballer. Can you help me with a strength and conditioning program? And you guys are like, all right, so what's the first thing you ask them? And he goes, are you good at footy? It's like, are you a good football player? Like, do you have the skill set in the actual competition exercise, in the sport? Because if you don't, then me helping you with your strength and power, it's not going to help that much.
Was it you that said, let's get the 99% before we focus on the 100%?
Like, because there's so
that hit home hard.
There is so much marginal gain. I saw this, it was like Bradley Wiggins recently got interviewed.
Cyclist?
Yeah, so... Like dual Olympic medalist, I think he's won Tour de France.
So this is how you know this guy took a ton of drugs. he backed up winning the Tour de France and then won the 2012 London road race or time trial literally 3 weeks later at the Olympics.
They say his blood
good,
is like it's got the texture of peanut butter because he's got that much EPO. His blood's thickened up that much.
Yeah, noted on this podcast, I love Bradley Wiggins. I think he's a great athlete and I think he's a great representation.
Oh, look, when have I ever got mad at someone for pissing hot?
Anyway, sorry, go on.
Oh no, but he was just like, someone had asked him about. So they've got a really famous sort of like director of their program in British cycling, and his whole thing has been like marginal gains. I was just reading this book, Black Box.
Well,
Thinking.
Wiggins is someone that knows that EPO gives you more than the 1%.
Yeah. I was reading this book, Black Box Thinking. They actually talk about like the British cycling methodology in terms of like marginal gains and all the 1%ers and how they redesign the bikes and the helmets and all this like to get that extra 1%. And someone asked Bradley Wiggins about it and he went, "Oh, marginal gains is bullshit, man. Like you just got to train hard and
The
be
giveaway's
good.
in the title.
Yeah.
Marginal.
Just be good. Like just be good at the actual thing that you're trying to do, and then like be a weapon at it, and then you can worry about the other stuff later.
Yeah.
Like people they want to move on so quickly from the basics, and it's like just get good at the basic stuff first. Like people move on from it so quickly. Like we've at Newington College, I'm in a really fortunate position where we've got access to like all this technology and stuff, and it's incredible. It's amazing. It's probably better than what a lot of professional sporting teams would have. We've got things like velocity-based training where you attach a transducer to the bar and it tells you how fast it moves.
Which is a whole new training
It's
variable.
incredible. It's amazing. It's like awesome. And I look at it and I go, man, I don't think this fits in our program. Like we're training 17-year-olds and at the moment they're just weak. Like they can just get strong. You know what, boys? You guys can just squat all year and like we could do 5 sets. Like they could do a linear progression all year. We could do 5 sets of 5 once a week.
Yeah, when you're in the
and add
throes
2.5
of puberty,
kilos, like just do the basics.
You could probably
man.
even do that for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're that
But
age.
again, this is something that PTs need to hear because they over-program so fucking much for their clients. Like, everyone thinks they're a mad dog handing out these, like, fully, like, down to the dotting the I's, crossing the T's on their programs with beginners. And it's like, well, their execution is fucked. So it doesn't matter how good your programming is. It's like they move like shit. It's like they just need to be, like you're saying, just getting the reps in.
Yep.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Yep. Squat, hinge, push, pull.
Yeah.
Lunge.
Yes, it's so
Slap
simple.
an extra 2.5 on every week.
But then some PTs will come to you and go, "Oh, but then that's boring." I'm like, "Well, there's a million different
Sorry,
exercises."
since when is
for
making
the squat
gains
variation.
boring?
No, but for the squat variation, there's a few different exercises for the hip hinge. Like you don't have to just go straight on.
You
both.
do like, and 100% you need variation as well,
Yeah.
right? So I was reading an interesting article recently about periodization, and it was about sort of is periodization really useful? And essentially, it just went like the reason that all periodization works is that at some point there is some type of variation. Like that's the principle of like you get good at something and then you kind of need to move on to something else to keep getting better. But when do you move on? Like you've got to milk the basics for all they're worth first, and then you need to be really proactive and realize, okay, now we've hit that plateau, now we need to change. And that's where people change way too quickly, way too early. They're in a rush to do something new and exciting, and it's like you haven't ticked that box yet.
Yeah, do you think that that's something, though, that's a luxury for you generally working with younger athletes in the developmental stages? Whereas then when you're working with someone more at the professional level where you have a starting date for the season, does that mean you have to move on from things even if you're still progressing on that program and start to sort of spin new plates, so to speak?
Well, it depends, man. Like if you look at a team sport that already has so much variation in movement, you almost want to just maintain general preparation all the time. Like in the gym, like you almost need something that is consistent. So yeah, you still have your variations of your movement patterns, but you pretty much are going to stick to them all year long.
Yeah.
And you'll have some, like you still need to sprint and jump and do all that sort of stuff as well. But they get so much variation through their sport already. Then if you look at more like time sports, like track and field, sprinting or swimming or whatever, in those sports, then that's when like being able to introduce like those specialized exercises and things like that are more important, because you need to get really good at doing something that's cyclical, and that's where you've got to be very specific with the exercise prescription. So in a team sport environment, like even then, like the basics get stuck to and they work. You look at like Dan Baker was the Brisbane Broncos strength coach for 20 years, and I'm pretty sure they squat and bench from day one of pre-season up until day before grand final. Like, those guys are PBing their bench press for the season the week of NRL grand final.
Fuck.
Is that like?
Dogs.
Is that a bit? I guess there's not that much injury risk when you're maxing out your bench. Or
Maybe not their squat. Maybe not their squat.
Yeah,
the bench press.
Do you remember years ago, and this was probably as idiot personal trainers in the gym we used to work at, the bench really got sort of bastardised amongst NRL teams, and I think a lot of them took it out. And don't get me wrong, I could be getting this, and I think I'm getting this from a really poor source. Was that something you saw? Like, did a lot of teams sort of take it out and put it back in?
Well, I can see people just performing it poorly, and that causing a lot of injuries.
This statement I'm saying could be completely wrong, because the person I got it from, or the people I got it from, like, probably weren't the best people to get this fact from. But
I don't know, man. Like, it's going to be different everywhere, man. Like, it's going to depend on the coaches. Like, are they sticklers for technique or whatever? And so this is the thing, man. Like, as much as I go S&Cs are undervalued or whatever, like we were talking about that before, I also kind of go like half of it doesn't matter as well. Like, because there are S&Cs who wouldn't care about technique. They just feel like, let's just rip in, get it done, and their teams still win on the weekend. And there'll be coaches who have NFI about like their training prescription or anything, and their team still win on the weekend.
Yeah, so it's like good in spite of their S&C.
Yeah, and then there are really good S&Cs that have really good programs at the moment.
Yeah,
and it's like
that would be a tough position.
And it's not their fault, man. Like, they're running a good program, but it doesn't matter, man. Like, are they? It comes back to, are they team good at the sport? Like, are they good at and maybe they are good at the sport too, and it's just like they're just having a bad run, man. Like, there's so many variables that you can't control for.
How well you've done your job is reliant on so many external factors. Like, that must cause a lot of guys
and
some
it's
anxiety.
tough, man. Like, and people lose their jobs over things they have no control over. Like, people like someone. There's like one bad egg in the team that happens to be on, like, I'm not saying this is a specific example, but it could be someone's on a lot of money, so they can't get rid of them, and they're a bad egg, and they make for a bad culture, and the team doesn't go well, and they miss the 8 or whatever, and there's a scapegoat. And who's the scapegoat? Oh, well, the head coach deflects to someone else, and someone else deflects to someone else, and the S&C guy's fault.
Who does he deflect to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're the one who ends up losing their job. And it's like, well, all these variables that you had no control over, like, you could have had the perfect program and it counted for nothing.
It just doesn't work.
So, because one conversation we've had on this podcast a couple of times is the fact that S&C coaches may pander towards the more general exercises like your bench, squat and deadlift, just because those are the things where it's very easy to show that you've had an impact and you've allowed the boys to progress. Whereas when you're getting into some of the more special exercises, you obviously can't progress the load as much. So it's harder to show, like, harder to quantify your value or success as a coach. Say, hypothetically, if you were coaching a rugby team and they were eating shit, what are the things that you would take to your bosses and be like, look, this is a sign that I'm doing a good job? Is it injury rates? Is it progress in the strength numbers?
Well, this is the thing, man. Like, coaches generally will want something like that, but if you've got a really good relationship with your coach and they understand your program, you shouldn't need to justify it. Like, they should just trust the process. And this is another thing, man. Like, people don't trust processes at all. Like, people are so reactive and they get scared. Like, they wouldn't lose a game on the weekend. It's like,
well, they want the results now.
Yeah, man. Like, oh shit, we've got to change everything. It's like, no, you don't. Like, there's an end goal. Like, when you designed your plan, you thought it was a good plan.
Yeah.
Why, after one game, is it now a bad plan? You made the plan. You've thought it out. Like, yeah, you don't have to stick to it perfectly. You're always going to tinker and make changes, but you've got a general structure and a general framework in place for a reason. Stick to that. Stick to that process. And, like, I shouldn't need to tell you such and such as front squat has gone up 15 kilos since our last testing day to justify my position. Like,
because it might not matter.
And it doesn't matter. Like, unless they're competing in front squats.
Yeah.
Like,
Fuck. That's something I was thinking about the other day when someone called me out of my front squat depth. I was like, that's funny, because when I enter that front squat fucking competition that I've got booked in, that'll be an issue. I can't remember.
Someone on the gram.
I was like, there is no depth for the front squat. Also, the knees in thing. I don't know why I asked for feedback on that
person
squat.
was an idiot.
But your knees can go in without being a valgus fault.
Mate, you know that, like,
Also, feels good when my knees come in. I fucking love it.
Anyone go watch the Chinese weightlifter.
Dude, I've seen knees touch on the way up.
Watch the NBA, man.
Yeah.
The best jumpers, their knees touch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They touch.
Let me stretch those tendons.
It looks rank.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah.
And it's like...
And can you imagine the talk going through those bad boys? Like, they've got the best basketball shoes, the most polished floor, so it's grippy as fuck. The moment you plant, that leg ain't moving.
Yeah.
It'd be like, oh.
Like, I'm not saying try to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
But
Because
like,
there's nothing worse as well than when
once.
someone, like, you're trying to correct someone's squat or something, and then they'll turn to the meme and they'll be like, yo, Usain Bolt wiggles his head when he runs. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up.
yeah, man, like... And at the end of the day, like, people self-organise. Like, your body is like this dynamic system with so many degrees of freedom, and like, people don't give like the human body enough credit that it figures itself out. It's like all these people who will argue about, oh no, this type of diet is better than this type of diet because of these macros and whatever. It's like, yeah, but are you dead from eating that diet?
Yeah,
like,
exactly right.
like,
That's the one thing that's hard to be objective about, though, like, because it's like some people's dysfunction definitely does need to be fixed. And I guess it's about figuring out, like, what are the dysfunctions that are affecting him in the sport.
well, the thing is, man, like, everything occurs in like a bandwidth, right? There's a bandwidth of what's acceptable.
Yeah, okay.
And then
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
when you fall outside that, okay, well, now we've got an issue.
Yes.
But people will only think that, like, the midline of that bandwidth is the only thing that they'll
It's
accept.
a bigger window than what people think.
And, like, there's so many different movement solutions that people use. Like, I'm not going to run the same way as you're going to run because you're a better athlete than me.
But if you're shit at what you're doing, maybe look towards the textbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like...
Yeah. When you're good, then you can be like, yeah.
Like, your limb lengths are going to affect the way that you catch a snatch, right? And, like, people will be like, oh, yeah, but, like, you should do such and such differently and it should look more like this. It's like, well, not necessarily. Like, this is the movement solution I've come up with. And if I try and do it that way, it's probably going to result in a worse outcome.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I saw, it was like this post the other day on Instagram. It was like this picture of Christian Coleman,
Yeah.
world record holder in the 60
What's weird about his tech is?
So, he's, like, feet are, like, real funky when he sprints and they point out. Like, if you look at him front on, it looks gross. And they're, like, pointed right, they're splayed right out. Like,
But it worked.
duck feet. It's like, yeah, but he's the fastest ever human over 60 minutes.
His indoor
Ever.
60 season was crazy, but
Let's
Ronnie
have some
Coleman's
fat
just
adductors.
taken over in outdoors this year.
Someone put a post up saying, would Christian Coleman run faster if his feet pointed straight ahead?
Fuck
and, like,
no.
the biggest response was yes. And I was like,
Yeah, but who were they asking?
hell no.
Who were they asking?
Hell no.
General
You're telling him to
public?
run with his feet pointing straight, he'll probably trip over himself. Like, he's
Exactly.
not going to be able to run. That's his
Yeah.
Maybe
movement
if you
solution.
got it back when he was 12. But younger maybe even. Like, is that a factor? Do you think?
Maybe
Because
not.
in my mind,
No.
that was the main issue. It's like, the reason why you wouldn't want to correct him is because, okay, so we can just not compete for 2 years as we try to fix your technique, and then that's the issue? Or do you think genuinely, even if you had infinite time and infinite resources, that it wouldn't make him faster?
I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
And no one has time to figure that out in their
maybe
athletic
like-
It might be a pointless conversation.
they're like maybe the pennation angle of his glutes insert in such a way that he gets the most power out of them when his feet are like when his hips are externally rotated. Like how that's the movement solution he's come up with
Do you
to
think
run
this-
fucking fast.
Do you think this is a thing? Like, obviously, it's a long way away, but the technology will lead and go, okay, you're this tall, your limb lengths are here, your muscle build is insertions like this. This is the absolute best way for you to do X.
Or it gives people some more objective markers of
Yes.
where they need to be in between and not be
has this
maybe.
been because that would be insane, but it would have to be so specific, and the systems in place and research that would have had to be done would be too much. I don't think we'll see it in our
Look, if
lifetime.
you did that with elite athletes, I think you'd find they're already doing
Yeah,
what
that's true.
Like,
Well, then I guess that could
You
be
would
starting
assume,
the
right?
research.
like they're not at the top because they're doing things wrong. Like the people don't like this is what it comes back to again. Like people don't give the human body enough credit. It figures stuff out.
Yeah.
Like people, it's the same with like pre-planned like drills and things like that. It's like, all right, you're going to run here and you're going to turn left at this cone, and then you're going to spin around and give me some icky shuffle in and out or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, throw them in a chaotic environment and let them just figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, get caught in awkward positions in a dynamic, changing environment and come up with a solution. Because at the moment, everyone thinks, no, there is only one way to do it. And it's like, no, you need to be able to solve different problems as they unfold. Like, you're never going to do 2 reps of anything that look the same. There's always going to be variation in them.
Yeah.
So how do you adjust under different circumstances is like the true tell of a good athlete.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the element of specificity as well, because I think a lot of people, their first understanding of specificity is purely like, do the joint angles and the biomechanics mimic the other thing that I'm trying to get good at? But that's one thing that Graham pointed out to me, which now seems fucking obvious, but just the fact that there's specificity in terms of like rate of force development, the movement itself, and like you're saying, like whether you're actually reacting to something and things like that. Like,
Yeah,
that's
and sometimes for something to be specific, it doesn't have to look, feel, or move at the same speed as the other thing that you're trying to train anyway. Like, so a Nordic hamstring curl is an injury mitigation tool for like sprinting related hamstring tears, right? And it looks, feels, and works at a speed that is completely different to sprinting, but it has been shown to be specific for the adaptation that you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
It is just, yeah.
You could think about specificity for a while.
Like
And people will keep thinking about it, because I'm sure there'll be research down the track that will show more and more things.
At the end of the day, the only thing specific to anything is doing the thing.
That's true.
Like, everyone wants to know what's the special exercise that's going to make you sprint faster.
Running. Well, like
Sprinting.
Joseph Klein said, the old grandma theory.
What's that?
Yeah,
Like,
it was good.
ask your grandma, how will I get better at basketball? And she'll be like, play basketball.
Ask your grandma. That's pretty good. Yeah.
We mentally absent when he said that. That was one of the moments of the podcast. I was like, oh.
I was so starstruck, I was just in fight or flight mode the whole time. I was like, what year is it?
We are getting into our scripted questions.
wait, I had a good one.
Ask.
Actually, I could just pretend that this is a question from Jesse Langbean.
Yeah, well, let's ask it at the end. Okay, let's give mental break. So we can have some serious laughs.
Do you like rap?
Oh, I don't mind rap. I'll listen to anything.
Wrong answer.
Yeah, wrong answer. Who is a rapper, an artist you would have rap about you, and what would they say? This is always a hard one for the coaches.
Because I feel like Kiely is easy to rhyme. Kylie Minogue, yeah, okay, we can work with it.
I don't know. I keep listening to Biggie, man. Like, it's hard to
old school.
There
you go. I think he would say something. Obviously, what we spoke about before, tights. You could be like wearing tights like Kylie.
Sprinting
in tights like Kylie.
Yeah. Man,
looking good in tights
this
like
track
Kylie.
just writes itself. If you're after a fresh Biggie experience, because there's nothing worse than when you get into an artist and you find out they're already dead or the band's broken up. But if you're looking for a fresh take on Biggie, do you know Rat-a-Tat?
Heard of.
They do production for a lot of rappers like Kid Cudi and all that. So, and they also have their own albums, but they remixed a whole bunch of old Biggie tracks, and they just did like such a sick job. It just gives it that bit more of a modern feel.
There's nothing like a good like remix.
Yeah,
that
like
just
a real
puts a good
Yeah.
spin on something you already like, and it's like
otherwise it'll ruin it forever.
Yeah.
So there's no lines, or you just write it for you.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, there's not a lot to say about me.
Well,
Hologram Biggie will need some S&C.
Yeah, 100%. He needs help.
What did he weigh? He was fat.
He was a big boy.
It's weird because in the movie about him, they kind of make out like he got laid heaps as a fat dude before he was famous. And I'm like, he might have. He sold lots of drugs.
What were his standards?
If you look at the movie, real nice.
Yeah, but they always juice it up.
It's a movie.
Like that chick had a rig like Tiana Taylor.
Yeah, Tiana Taylor. Shout out to Mark. He's coming on the show one day. Don't worry about
Is
that.
that
She
a
can
man?
come on too. Yeah, Armin Shumpert.
I reckon she could run low 11s.
She's very athletic.
With that
Their
rig.
kid, so her husband raps. He's won the championship with the Cavs. He's about 6'8", super athletic, and she's like...
So basically like the worst person in the world, like the person you hate.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty much. And he's like jack
people.
tall, not like
Worse.
heaps skinny tall. And then his wife is like, looks like could run sub 11 for 100, dances in Kanye's film clips, sings
doesn't
as
touch
well.
weights.
Just like their kid would be fucked.
Yeah, I think the athleticism of dancers is constantly underrated though, especially amongst the female population, because it's just a
they're
lifetime
athletes.
of plyos.
Well, anyway, there's a few in the
athletes.
country at the moment, and that might be a guest in upcoming weeks, so we can discuss that then. Leave it with me. Like Angus ever leaves anything not with me to do on this podcast, by the way. Next question. Who are your 5 favourite athletes of all time?
So I had to think about this one earlier.
You got it.
Well, I actually wrote down some notes on my notepad.
You left them?
Hey?
You left it?
No, it was on my phone. No.
Good.
So I had to think about this. So my first...
Was the notepad comment a jab at Angus's rant on Instagram a few weeks ago?
What was this rant?
With Angus sitting with pen and paper right now?
No, so it was bad. 'Cause I thought Luke Tollett was being a smart ass in his story as well, showing his client writing shit down. I'm like, all right, I get it. Smart people write things down.
Anyway, sorry.
So, like I said, like growing up, cricket was my big one. So I used to love like Brett Lee and Sean Tate, fast bowlers.
What about the Brett Lee soundtracks?
Not as big a fan of his tunes as I am of
My
his...
client got a pick with BrettLee this week. Jiggy.
Oh, hectic.
Yeah, she's Indian too, so she flipped out hard.
Yeah, so like, when I played cricket growing up, like Sean Tate and Brett Lee were the man.
Who's Sean Tate?
I remember the name, but
like-
Brett Lee, of course we know.
So Sean Tate, like, didn't play a lot of cricket for Australia, had a lot of injuries and that, and like his nickname was the Wild Thing because the joke was that like he doesn't know where it's going, but bowled fucking gas, like absolute rapid. Like at one stage he was like regularly playing 2020 cricket for Australia and bowling at like 160.
So he's a 2020 player.
Jeez.
Like 160 k's an hour, which is essentially like as quick as anyone has ever bowled. And just like
I can see why I had injuries.
Batsmen are just like
Just putting some torque
no
through that
idea what's
shoulder
going
joint.
on. Yeah, so he had some issues. But
There's your rap line. Maybe he could reference Sean Tate and how you would have been able to help him with your S&C mind.
well, mate, to be honest, I don't know if I could have.
Oh, okay, alright.
He came up with his own movement solution, you see.
Yeah.
If I changed his technique, he probably wouldn't have
Wouldn't
bowled
have
as
bowled
rapid.
as
No loves to the king of spin. You're more a pace man. I guess from the
Warnie?
S&C background. Yeah. Come on.
Oh,
Or is it just too much of a grub?
he's a grub, isn't he?
Yeah, I love
A
Warnie,
bit of a
but he's
legend
crap.
also. Man, I
Got some
wish
funny
we got
stories
forced
about
into
him.
cricket when we were young, just
Oh,
because
fuck
like
no.
the banter aspect of it is so good.
Yeah, not for me. I'm happy with my athletic development. I'm just not.
It's not like a sport for
Right,
athletes.
thanks for going
by
with me
any
on that one.
Well, look, you could have played cricket.
Everyone used to tell me I was good at bowling back in the day. I know that's a lie.
You never know, I guess. Well, hey,
Maybe
he's someone who can
maybe
tell
he's
you.
had some gas. He could have been the next Wild Thing.
Yeah.
Damn it. Fuck. I was trying to get too textbook with my techers. Alright, let's keep this list going.
What's that? 2?
Two.
3. So I was a Newcastle Knights fan growing up. So Joey Johns.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah.
Has anyone mentioned Andrew Johns yet?
What a loose
that's the
unit.
first.
Oh, such a loose unit.
My favourite story of his was the most recent incident when he was up at Toowoomba Airport and he was allegedly hassling this. She was probably a bit of a MILF. She was there at the airport with her kid and it was like after hours, so there weren't many people around, and apparently he just strolled up to her while she was with her kid and just said, "Give us a kiss, love," and she was like, "Ew, gross," and then he just turned around, strolled off and then passed out on one of the seats. But then a school kid in New South Wales got a photo of him that next morning just passed out on a City Rail train and it ended up in the papers. So he
He's
just
an Aussie
bended it all the way back from Toowoomba and passed out on a city train. Got captured by a bunch of school kids. Just such a loose unit. I love it. I've had trained some people that grew up in Newey as well, and just the stories about the Johns boys that you hear. I can't repeat any of them on the mic, but I believe every single one.
Oh, yeah.
It's as good as Lego.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good number.
He's never. I'm just screwed. He's never going to come on our show.
No, he'll come on for sure. I see him here all the time.
Really?
Yeah, he
With
does some
Sam
stuff
as
with the
well.
Roosters,
There's
man.
heaps with the Roosters.
But if he's on here, he's got to open up.
Yeah,
I want some
open up.
fresh stories.
Alright, next, number 4. Andrew Johns, good one.
Number 4. So, like, I'm still pretty young, so, like,
Yeah.
current athlete, still playing, but, like, when I was growing up, I thought he was a superstar. It was Sonny Bill.
Oh, mate.
Well, he ended
he's
Johns'
been referenced
career.
before.
He did. He knocked
The shoulder on the
fuck
jaw.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From
That was
The
brutal.
Circle of Life with Nathan Kiely's top 5. One career ends, another one begins.
Yeah, Sonny's a weapon.
Yeah, Sonny is a fucking weapon. Coiney reference. Did Coiney say
He worked
Sonny?
with him.
Yeah, because he worked with him as well, and you got to sort of see and take in what sort of athlete.
Well, because remember when he was doing a bit of training at Lift Performance Centre and he just whipped the shirt off in the middle of Lift?
No one was angry at that.
I was loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you wet.
Oh, man, it's
He
crazy.
didn't need that, Cialis. No, who's number 5?
When I was like 15, 16, I got into my boxing pretty hard. So obviously Muhammad Ali. The
Muhammad
greatest.
Ali, yeah. He gets referenced a ton. Not as much as Mike Tyson, though. on the show.
Yeah, Tyson shows up so much.
Iron Mike's a better YouTube compilation to watch.
Tyson shows up.
Iron Mike's a better YouTube compilation to watch.
Oh, mate, his YouTubes are crazy.
Just watching him, not people.
Yeah.
This guy a fucking bully.
Right, last question, Angus. This has been a good one.
Jesse Langbean told me that there's a direct relationship between your ability to lift weight on the trap bar and your sprinting speed. I then said to him, so you're telling me that Usain Bolt has the
Trap
world
bar
record trap bar deadlift? To which Jesse responded, yes. Can you just comment on how dumb that is?
The only way I could see that being true is if he had
said
giant wheels on there.
Said
and he only had
3.8
lift
to
at the time.
3.9 times body weight.
Fuck, Usain Bolt would break.
It's like a 360, 370 kilo.
I went to a seminar with Usain Bolt's strength and conditioning
I heard
coach
he's
once.
crazy.
Yeah. Wasn't it just down here?
He didn't know anything.
He was like, just a smoke of the herb and hope you don't piss hot, man.
So, someone asked him a question about like cooldowns or whatever, and he
Yeah.
was like, "Oh yeah, with the cooldown, we're trying to get the lactic acid to come out of the muscle so that it doesn't crystallize in there and cause delayed onset muscle soreness." I don't think he knew that that's what it was called, but soreness.
Was he Jamaican?
Yeah, 100%.
Good.
So,
Still, that's because I would not accept that
voice,
as an answer if he was from
was I meant to
anywhere
get in
else.
character?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I thought he was
Yeah,
Jamaican.
No, so few issues with his idea there. One, lactic acid isn't even like the thing that causes fatigue.
Yeah.
So that's hydrogen ions.
And muscle soreness.
Second of all, muscle soreness has nothing to do with like lactic acid either. Like it's just from like muscle damage.
Yeah, that
and
guy, I
metabolic
guarantee,
waste.
he's selling out globally. Look,
Yeah.
it would have been worth it just
So
to hear
what was the
stories
vibe
from
in the
Usain.
room?
This is his expert opinion. So sitting next to him is one of the UTS. It was like a panel type thing. And sitting next to him was one of these professors from UTS, and I could just see like his head explode inside. Like it was just like he started to like cry blood as his brain had hemorrhaged
Yeah.
from like the stupidity.
Because he's just realising it doesn't matter how good you get at all this, you just need the talent to roll up on your doorstep.
Like Gmo was there too, and I remember both of us were just sitting there like, what the f-?
The whole room probably would have been going like that. I would have just gone, look, put my hand up and gone, question, can we stop talking about this? And we just ask you questions about Usain specifically.
Well, Nathan's next session, his athlete's like, what's the workout today, coach? He was like, fucking whatever. It's all good.
Oh man, it was so funny. And like, it ended up being, because there was a panel of people that were guests, right? And all the questions just ended up being to everyone except Usain Bolt's strength coach, who was meant to be like the keynote person. Because after like
just
3
crazy.
questions, everyone just realised this bloke's got NFI. So
Yeah.
we're not getting anything from him.
Dude, if I've taken one thing from this interview, it's that acronym.
NFI.
I'm gonna be using that a lot.
You
Yeah.
can swear on our show, by the way.
Yeah, well.
It's
It's just good. I
Yeah,
just like it.
I think
Good
I've
one.
been swearing too much
anyway.
on this episode, so I appreciate Nathan not.
Trap bar deadlift and sprint speed.
No
So
correlation.
I think I know where this comes from. So I was listening to, like, I'm a podcast fiend. So,
People just obsess over like the specificity of the joint angles. They're like, oh, the joint angles are so similar.
yeah, well, they're not really.
Yeah.
But so it was like a Tim Ferriss podcast like a few years ago.
Well, we all know Tim Ferriss is a really fast sprinter.
Well, no. So he did this interview with this guy who was like the head athletic development guy from Nike. So one.
The
So
best
they have their
salesman
own
in
coach.
I don't even know who this bloke was, right? But he talked about how he'd done in-house research where he showed that there's like a direct correlation between trap bar deadlift and sprint speed.
This is guaranteed the guy that Jesse was talking
Yeah,
about. 'cause
100%.
He would listen to the Tim
Oh, he
Ferriss
would love
podcast.
it.
And I remember just thinking, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Fuck,
No
let's
relationship
go.
at all, man. Like, there would be a relationship in terms of if I took someone who was untrained and I started trap bar deadlifting with them and started sprinting with them at the same time, they'd probably get faster at sprinting.
Yes.
And if they were sprinting continuously and I added trap bar deadlifts and they're doing no strength training beforehand, yeah, maybe they'd get quicker.
Yeah.
But to say that like there's just a direct correlation between the two, very, very skeptical.
And you see, listeners, that's why you have to blow this show up bigger than the Tim Ferriss show so you can get the correct answers to these silly
to the
questions.
peoples.
Yeah. Exactly.
The peoples need to know.
The
Exactly.
information needs to be spread.
I remember hearing it, man, and I was just like,
Wow.
nah, don't know about that.
Anyway,
Just
we're
having an
solving-
existential crisis on your commute to work.
I want to like follow up and get to the bottom of it. I want to give you some more details.
Oh,
but
mate,
like
please
100%,
come back
man.
to it.
Like actually, I was going to say the fastest guy at the Roosters isn't the biggest squatter, but he actually is. But that's one example. So
One time.
no, so the fastest guy that I've got at Newington is not the strongest by a long way. Like he's hell fast. Like he's faster than any of the Roosters guys. Like I take their GPS numbers. Like this guy would probably run like sub 11.
Jeez.
But he's not putting up the biggest numbers in squats and deadlifts.
Yeah.
We trap bar deadlift, and he's not the biggest trap bar deadlifter.
There you go, guys.
It's tough to find that sweet spot with strength.
Yeah.
Because you can absolutely waste a lot of time on it past a certain point, but then there's so many other people that get specific too soon, and it's
Like
it's so hard to manage that.
they talk about like 2 times body weight squats being.
Well, we even
the-
spoke about that in the coin interview.
Yeah.
We discussed all that because then he went into exactly what you're speaking about now, Nathan, the how squatting doesn't affect sprinting outcome, because he was talking more about force production.
It's like it's up to a certain point you're going to get something out of it. But
Marginal gain.
it's like no one exercise is the panacea to like fix running faster, except sprinting.
I always like to summarize our interviews and wrap it up at the end, but I feel like, look, take what you will from this podcast. There was a vast array of topics.
How long did we go for?
It's almost an hour and a half. That's why I'm like, I got to pack this shit up and get back to work.
That's good,
myself.
Blown it out.
Yeah. Nathan, thanks for coming on. It's been a great episode. I've had a great time.
Debut of the new studio.
Debut of the new studio,
Your
guys.
setup is lit.
YouTube. So yeah, fucking wave to the cameras. Hopefully I can organise this so it looks alright on YouTube. A bit of outro music maybe starting now. And that's it. High Performance Podcast, episode 82 in the books. New
Should we
mic
clap
setup.
ourselves out?
Yeah, let's do it, boys. Thank you.